Welcome to Hero Talk, the quarantine edition, where we talk to ordinary people doing extraordinary things, heroes of culture, business, technology, and society, who all have one thing in common: they want to change the world. Today, I'm joined with a very special guest, a dear friend of mine, someone I consider a mentor, one of the sharpest marketing minds in the game, an individual that has worked with some of the biggest brands in the world, from Nike to Apple, to Shiflin and Somerset, who've amassed, years of experience in the game. My dear friend, Arturo Nunnez. What's up, my brother? How are you, sir?
What up, my man? I'm humbled, and it's such a pleasure to be here with you. Long overdue, bro. I wanted to get in a little stool with you in New York, but didn't make that happen. I'm glad we're doing the quarantine edition. Let's get it.
I got to tell you, I've been excited to have this conversation with you for a while for a variety of reasons. You and I have the privilege of calling you a consigliere and being able to talk to you and get meaningful advice. And it is a type of advice and insight that, I want my viewers and as many people that can tune in and watch this to also benefit from. And it's almost serendipitous because the time in which we are in, I think everyone needs really poignant guidance. People are searching for meaning. So part of what I really want to, and I'm excited to talk to you about are two things. One is, and there's subjects that I know you know a lot about. One is finding your North Star, right? And I think right now a lot of people feel lost, trying to identify purpose, trying to find meaning in this. How can you cut through all the noise to continue to find your North Star? And the second piece is this concept of leadership, right? And I know that in the press and in the media, there's a lot of individuals right now, from governors to our president to other local leaders to brands that are trying to step up right now. The country, the world, we all need leaders, but more importantly, within ourselves, we need to find those leadership qualities to help us get through this tough time. So before we dive into the specifics around that, I would love for you to give the viewers kind of an overview and a primer of your background, who you are, how you got started in marketing. You're a native New Yorker from Harlem, humble beginnings, have gotten the opportunity to work for some of those brands, some of those big brands that I mentioned. How'd you get started in marketing? And give us a little insight into your journey and how it led you to this point.
Sure. I'll try to give you the Cliff Notes version because I can go on for a little while.
I know it's deep and rich, man. I know it's deep and rich.
But man, I was very fortunate when I was a sophomore in high school. A friend of mine got involved with a program called Inroads. I don't know if you're familiar with Inroads. I was living in northern New Jersey at the time, and he got involved in Inroads. And Inroads was a program that tried to take minority kids from disadvantaged backgrounds and give them a leg up to see the corporate atmosphere by working as interns in corporate America. And a friend of mine told me about the program, and I didn't know anything about corporate America or marketing or anything else, but I went down with him one Saturday afternoon and met a bunch of people. And one of the first things that happened when I walked into that room at Inroads, New Jersey, I met the executive director. Guy's name was Miguel Cardona. And that's the first time I had ever seen a Black Latino man in a business group speaking truth to power, to powerful people. And man, I looked across the room at that dude and I was like, yo, man, I don't know what that dude does, but whatever that is, that's what I want to do. You know what I'm saying? I joined Inroads Northern New Jersey. I got my first internship with them at Johnson & Johnson in marketing, and the rest was history.
Was this while you were in college, or when was this?
No, high school. Yeah,
high school. In high school. Wow.
As a senior in high school, I started working at Johnson & Johnson in marketing. New Brunswick, New Jersey, for a small division called Chicopee. And Chicopee manufactured like gauze and gowns and stuff for other J&J companies. So it was like an internal industrial division of Johnson & Johnson. But that's where I got my first insight into marketing, the discipline of marketing. I loved it. I loved the creativity. I loved the idea that no 2 days were the same. I loved all the different aspects, copywriting and making ads and telling stories about product and connecting products to solutions for different companies. I thought it was amazing. And that was my real first foray. And really, I've been in marketing for 35 years since. I've had a few leadership positions, vice presidents outside of marketing. But for the most part, my career has been marketing positions since then. J&J, Colgate-Palmolive, Diageo, the NBA, Nike, and Apple. Yeah. Oh, I forgot PepsiCo in there too. It all started with that J&J internship.
Well, I mean, obviously, those types of opportunities within our community are rare. I mean, how important is it for communities like that basically help expose individuals that have very little purview on the type of corporate jobs that you've been able to hold down and have, so that you have the exposure and the insight and the context to say, I want to pursue that? Because, and I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but what you just brought up is very important. There is a lack of those types of opportunities and programs within inner cities and within communities of color, so they can get insight into what's possible.
Absolutely. Yo, man, there's a old cliche of a saying that says you can't be it if you can't see it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so Inroads, I was blessed, put me in a situation where I could see it. Here's what business people do every day. Here's what marketers do every day. Here's how they act. Here's how they talk. Here's how they see the world. It helped me to say, well, I can do that too. You know what I mean? And so I think you're right. There's very few organizations that give people the opportunity. I'm actually involved, and this is a quick shout out to an organization called NIA. I'm actually involved in a group called the NIA Project down here in Miami. The NIA Project takes 15 to 18 fellows every year, and their conduit towards, see it, be it, is takes these kids on their first international travel experience. So kids that never had a passport, never really been off the block, gives them the first opportunity to go travel and experience a different culture. They've taken kids, the NIA's been going around for 6 or 7 years now. They're taking kids to Indonesia, they're taking kids to Costa Rica, they're taking kids to Ghana, they're taking kids to Brazil to have their first international experience. Once those kids get back from that experience, the NIA group, of which I'm a board member, then ensures that those kids are helped to do all of their applications for college, helped with their SATs, and helped to get scholarships to college. To date, 98% of those kids, and I'm not talking about hundreds of kids, right? It's a dozen or 15 or 18 kids a year for 7 years now. But to date, 98% of those kids have gotten their full college paid for and have all gone and graduated from college. And it all started with see something different. Be part of something different. Go someplace else and experience a different part of the world. All these kids come back on fire, with their minds on fire, trying to achieve and be. And NIA gives them the opportunity to do that. So I think kudos to programs like Inroads that still exist today. Kudos to programs like NIA. Kudos to the Boys and Girls Club that try to show kids something different so that they can be what they see. But I think there's still very limited opportunities. And I also will say this. I remember entering corporate America, man. When I entered corporate America, the number of minorities that held leadership positions in corporate America were tiny. I'm talking about, I'm not gonna remember the exact percentages, but it was like 4% African American, 5% Latino, 2% Asian. Years later, I looked at the numbers again, and I said, I wonder if there's been any change, late 90s, 2000s, whatever. You know what? The numbers were exactly the same. Now you might say, Arturo, how is that possible with affirmative action and all this stuff? How's it possible those numbers are the same? Well, first of all, remember I said management and leadership, right? Distinction number one. And distinction number two, the biggest change that's happened in terms of affirmative action, employment, et cetera, has been white women in the workplace. Yeah. So when white men say that since the 70s, they've lost 25% of the jobs they used to hold, it's true. They've lost those jobs to their wives and their mothers and their sisters. That's who they lost those jobs to. They certainly haven't lost them to us. Our percentages remain the same. And a lot of corporations try to cover that up by saying, oh, what are you talking about? We've employed, 30% more African Americans, Hispanics, or Asians than we have in the past. Most of those jobs are not in management or leadership. Most of those jobs are clerical, they're in HR, they're in retail. That's where they're making those numbers.
So you've worked with all these amazing brands. You just rattled off a litany of brands, Fortune 500 brands. You've been blessed, right? When you got into corporate America, when was your first contact, or when did you first become aware of that fact that there was a massive underrepresentation of people of color in leadership positions? And did that concern you with respect to how you would be treated internally with regard to you know, how your talent was being assessed, upward mobility, or did you go in there with a specific mindset like, I am going to be the exception to the rule, I am going to reach this goal?
Yo, man, to be honest with you, I was young and I was just happy to be in the game. You know, I was happy to be in the game. I'll tell you the first story where I came across that, and I won't get into names, doesn't matter, right? The point is, at one point I was in the Latin American division of a company. I was very, very young in my career. And I looked at the global directory for the company, and I looked at all the senior titles. So every country had a GM, and I looked at the GM list, and I was like, wow, every single GM at every country organization had a name that was an Anglo name. And I thought that was really strange. I was like, wow, the top guy in Mexico is Tom Smith. The top guy in Brazil is, you know, Bob Jones. The top guy in Indonesia is Mark Price. The top guy in China is, you know, Stan, whatever. I was like, yo, that's really weird. You know, I'm young guy from America. I'm like, that's super strange, you know? So I approached the head of the Latin American division, and I was like, yo, man, it's really weird to me that even in these countries where obviously you need knowledge of the country and the consumer and operating process in these countries to do business there, that we still have all Anglos running these countries. I would think that we find local or farm local leadership for these countries, you know? And, you know, the guy kind of got my point. At first, I think he didn't really get my point. And then I kind of went away. And a month or so later, he called me back to his office. He was like, hey, Nunnez, did you see the new GM of Mexico? And I was like, what? He was like, you know, he reminded me of the conversation we had. And I went in the directory and I saw the GM Mexico. Yo, and the GM Mexico is Alejandro Gutierrez. But yo, the guy's name was Alejandro Gutierrez. And I was like, oh, snap, okay. So he obviously understood what I was saying. And wow, now there's a Mexican dude who's running Mexico. That's super dope. Company this big, that should be the case, you would think.
I hope you got at least a dinner out of that, you know?
No. The story gets better. The story concludes with one day meeting Alejandro Gutierrez. Well, Alejandro Gutierrez was born and raised in Connecticut. He went to Choate Rosemary Hall. He graduated from Harvard. He'd never been to Mexico.
Wow.
His grandfather was Mexican. And so I say that, I point that out, I tell that story to say, yo, man, corporate America finds people closest to what they envision to be leaders in their organization. And they haven't gone as far as to say, we want those people to be reflective of the cultures that they're in. They say, we want those people to be just like us. We'll tolerate a weird name or two. You know what I'm saying? We want those people to be just like us. And it's reflected in the business, you know? And I think it's a bad business practice.
Where did you find the courage to voice your opinion to, obviously at the time, your superior? I mean, there's so many people of color that get these positions. You mentioned just happy to be in the game. They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to voice their opinion. They're not trying to bring recommendations to their bosses that may, you know, make their boss uncomfortable or have to have a conversation about race and ethnicity when they're just trying to fit in as a minority within a large general market, probably predominantly Caucasian-run organization. How did you find that courage to have that conversation in that moment?
Yeah, I'll be really honest with you, man. I wasn't courageous at all. I wasn't trying to be an activist. I was young and dumb. And so I was still showing up as myself and just saying what I thought, you know, was something that was harder to do. The more I climbed the ladder, it was much harder to do. But I was brand new, you know, and the 40-year-old or the 35-year-old Arturo wouldn't have had that conversation. The 21-year-old just didn't know any better, to be honest with you. Now, I've had hard conversations later in my corporate career because I felt the need to stand up, and I felt, you know, I was feeling myself as an activist and a change agent within the organization. But that particular conversation I just shared with you, I was just young and dumb. So I brought it up. It didn't make any sense to me. So I was like, hey, man, this is weird to me. In hindsight, I'm glad that I did, but it wasn't a revolutionary move. You know what I mean?
So you mentioned a little bit about how obviously hiring women has almost been, and look, no disrespect to, you know, hiring women, or, I mean, obviously that's necessary as well, but we cannot just allow corporate America to continue to focus on just that and call that D&I, right? And so,
let me interject something right there, Joe, real quick. Yo, man, that doesn't just happen in corporate America. You know, Years ago, when the government decided that, and I'll give you a specific example, Atlantic City, New Jersey, the government decided that all the people that were doing business with the city of Atlantic City had to have some affirmative action representation, right? You know, all the vendors that they were using. Overnight, all of the vendors that were already working with the government just opened up an LLC with their wife or their daughter and took that business. So it doesn't just happen within corporate America, it happens everywhere, you know? That these roles, these opportunities that are opened up for our people end up getting usurped by other people under the guise of gender diversity.
It's to me, I mean, obviously in the advertising industry, an industry that I've also been in for, you know, over 20 years,
Sure.
you know, corporate America, you mentioned, you know, 5% penetration in the advertising agency space. Executives of color are probably make up 5%, 6% of the total workforce.
I'd be surprised if it was that high.
What is the systemic issue that is, I guess, impeding corporate America's ability to solve this problem? Because, you know, we can't just continue to say, oh, well, we're hiring women and so we're checking that box. Is it a cultural thing? Is it a cultural aptitude thing? Is it an apathy thing? Is it just, you know, hey, we're not going to do anything until somebody like slaps us on the wrist about it or calls us out? What do we need to do to get corporate America to be a little bit more keen to this issue? Because it is more widespread than I think a lot of people are talking about.
Yeah, man. Yo, I don't own the truth on this. I just have my perspective, right? But I think that all of this conversation about diversity has for too long been couched in doing the right thing. Doing the right thing from a cultural perspective, from a social perspective, from a discrimination perspective, from a inclusion perspective. It has never been couched yet, at least in a significant way, as good business. And I think that's the inhibitor. If you couch it as a nice to do and not a must do, it never gets done. You have to bring the conversation into it is going to be fundamentally good for your business to have diverse perspectives and point of view. And somehow corporate America seems to be hard-headed and still doesn't get it, despite the Dove commercials, despite Prada faux pas, despite Gucci faux pas. I saw an ad this morning from Folgers. Holy shit. It's unbelievable that no one is standing up. And you and I, Joe, being in this business, you know, the lay people that may be watching this at some point might think, you know, oh yeah, somebody made a mistake and put out an ad that's controversial or that might be positioning Black people in a negative light. You and I know somebody didn't make a mistake. You and I know that 30, 40, 50 people see all of this creative before it sees the light of day. So there were 50 people that saw the Dove commercial and didn't have any pause. There were 50 or 100 people that saw the Gucci stuff or the Prada stuff, and it didn't give them any pause. That tells you how,
the cool monkey in the jungle shirt.
Yeah,
you know?
when I joined Colgate-Palmolive, they had a toothpaste called Darky toothpaste with a black Sambo character on the box.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
They subsequently changed that to Darlie. They changed the brand to Darlie, and they changed the complexion of the character on the box. But do you understand what I'm saying? This is how little representation we've been, or how small our voice has been in the room, that we haven't been able to stop companies from damaging their reputation. You know what I'm saying? Because we just weren't in the room. And so the idea that this is a nice to do is nonsense. This is good business practice. I worked for a company, and I went to a sales meeting. Again, the names will remain undisclosed. But I went to a company, I went to a sales meeting. It was a global sales meeting. And now I wasn't the naive young person that I was at 21 when I asked that question at the other company. But I went to the sales meeting, and there were 3,000 people in attendance. And I noticed that I was one of the only Black people in the room. So I went over to someone in senior leadership, and I said, hey, is this the global sales meeting? They said, yes, it is. I said, cool. I said, so the salespeople from Detroit are here, right? They said, yep. And I said, the salespeople from Chicago are here? Absolutely. What about the salespeople from Atlanta? They're here too. I said, you said global, right? Yeah, global. So the salespeople from South Africa are here? Yep, absolutely. And I was the only Black person. I was the only Black person in the room, and I wasn't a salesperson. So that means there were 0 Black salespeople at the company, 3,000 in a global meeting. How is this possible? Did it occur to no one that potentially in Washington, D.C., if you're selling a product and you have an African-American sales rep going to African-American retailers, you might develop some relationships that might bear fruit for your company? Did no one think of this? Did no one say, hey, if I'm in South Africa and I want to understand how South African customers perceive my product, having a salesperson that might be able to relate to the culture of those customers might be beneficial to my business? Did no one think of this? I got to tell you that I don't believe, I used to believe that was an oversight. I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I think these people, because, at the end of the day, we always say that it's about money, right?
Yeah.
Show me the money.
Yeah.
I've grown to believe, and you may see this point of view as cynical, that they're like, yo, man, if it's going to take me having to deal with people whose culture I don't understand, I don't appreciate, or I don't respect in order to get more business, I'm simply not with it. I'll leave that money on the table. I'm okay. There's no other way for me to explain it. There's another way to explain it.
So I'm going to ask you a poignant question. Was that one of the contributing factors that resulted in you kind of prematurely leaving corporate America? I mean, look, you were in the prime of your career. You were like holding down a CMO role, one of the few executives of color to actually reach that that class of executive class within corporate America, and so you can count the number of Black CMOs on one hand in corporate America. You've achieved so much. Your trajectory was just continuing to go up and up. What made you basically say, "Nah, I'm out"?
Yeah, man, like I said, I started at 16 years old, 16, 17. Not many people could say they started in corporate America at 16, 17. My first internship with J&J, I was that age. And so I spent 35 years in corporate America. My exit was premature from the standpoint of, was there more that I could do within corporate America? Absolutely. And to this day, I still get calls.
Yeah, and that's my point. Not that you weren't capable of doing other things, but just...
but I kind of made a decision that I wanted to see if I could use those skills that I had learned. And I take nothing away from corporate America. I learned so much. I got to see so much of the world. I got to work with some of the smartest people on the planet at some amazing brands. I take nothing away from any of that experience, but I thought it was time to find out what I could do on my own. I got tired of the glass ceilings that existed in corporate America. I got tired of having to prove myself in the halls of corporate America and the conference rooms all the time, because your credentials, despite your credentials, your credibility is always in question as a minority in corporate America.
Yeah.
You're constantly having to prove yourself, constantly having to jump through hoops that your peers didn't have to jump through, constantly being more experienced, more equipped, and more talented than your peers to be given the same roles, the same opportunities, and the same purview, roles and responsibilities. It wears on you after a while. I didn't want to go prove myself every day. I got tired of proving myself. I felt like I had nothing left to prove. If my resume doesn't speak for itself, if the number of companies that I've worked for and been successful at, my track record of success at these companies, some of the best in the world, doesn't speak for itself, and I still have to get dressed every morning and go in and prove that I belong there, I didn't want to be a part of that.
So it was an accumulation of factors. It wasn't one inflection point for you.
It wasn't one. It was a number of situations like that where you're constantly undervalued and underappreciated. And I'll be, there's a woman named Robin Arzon. She's actually a Peloton trainer. And I love the conversation she had one day, and one of the profile that was done on her. She said she was a lawyer. Her parents wanted to be a lawyer. She wanted her to be a lawyer. She became a lawyer. And she said she woke up one day and the suit was too heavy for her. She didn't want to carry the suit no more. And I felt that way. I can identify, empathize with that sentiment. I didn't want to do it anymore.
But the weight of that suit for you was compounded because you were a person of color.
Absolutely.
Because you felt that there was unconscious biases that were potentially impeding or impacting your ability to work in a way that took full advantage of your talents.
Absolutely. At most of the enterprises in which I work, yes, I felt that way.
So here's the conundrum, right? We need more Black leaders within corporate America that rise to the level that you are at to stay in corporate America because at that point they have the power to influence the cultural change needed to create a better balanced culture that's more proportionately representative of all cultures that need to make up a healthy business environment and to impact productivity. But because of the experiences that you have within it, as soon as you get to a point of means where you have the ability and the benefit of choice to bounce, a lot of people of color who are in these positions are choosing to leave for entrepreneurial endeavors because they cannot exist within these cultures anymore because they find it toxic and somewhat limited.
Yeah.
So is there a catch-22 there?
Yeah. I want to say that to the extent that I was a trailblazer and I helped fashion the careers of a lot of minorities within corporate America through all my different roles and helped to push those people forward and inspire and motivate them and look out for them, et cetera. I also stood on the shoulders of a bunch of people, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was people like Deborah Sandler, who was one of my bosses at PepsiCo, a Black woman who was the Titan, ended up being a president at M&M Mars. It was people like Cheryl Starworth Hooper at Colgate Palmolive, who was my boss in a couple different roles, that helped me to see what Black leadership looked like. Strong, powerful, smart women. And that I had to younger people coming up through the organization to give them a hand up, you know what I mean? And help them out, and give them a vision and help them to succeed. It's people like Gina Warren at Nike or Trevor Edwards at Nike, right? Powerful, strong, smart Black people that helped me along the way. So, you know, I stand on their shoulders, right? I stand on their shoulders, and that's super important. At the same time, yes, I think that you're right. I think that people get to a point where there's a drop in the bucket that's a drop too much. And they say, I'm not going to continue to do this. You know, and I've seen a lot of people leave the ranks of corporate America because they were tired. They were tired. You know, you don't want to be a rebel everywhere. You don't want to be a rebel every day. You don't want to be an activist every day. I'm just trying to do my job. Can I do my job? Can I apply my smarts and my experience, my knowledge, you know, what I know to this, you know, without being judged for being a minority? Can I raise my hand and say something without being the Black guy that's saying something now, you know? And I say that I don't want to sound like a victim. You know, I was conscious and I was confident. I was conscious and confident in most of the roles that I was in that listen to my peers, my white peers, I can do your job in 3 languages. That's not arrogance. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
I speak 3 languages fluently. I'm more important than trilingual. I'm tricultural. I can do your job in 3 languages and 3 cultures, right? That's just a fact. But having to go in every day and prove that I knew what I was talking about and prove that I had the right vision and the right solutions and prove that I was the right leader for the role, it wears on you, man. It wears on you. I'm not a Superman, you know? So I did the best that I could. I think I paved the way for a lot of people that are still in corporate America, still fighting those fights. I still consider friends and family, but I was done. It was enough for me. You know, sorry. I'll close that comment with, you know, Ava DuVernay was asked, you know, if she had a responsibility as a filmmaker to educate white folks about the stuff that Black people go through every day, you know? And she said, that's really important. That's not my job. You know what I'm saying? So I think, I punctuate that by saying, I think paving the way for African Americans, Hispanics, minorities in corporate America is really important. I think these companies should understand that dealing, you know, having minorities within their ranks is good business, not just do good work. I've done as much as I'm going to do on that front. I'm finished. It's no longer my job.
Well, I know where whatever you're involved in, you're going to constantly focus on mentoring, giving back, fostering. So whether you were doing that within a corporate environment or doing that in your own kind of in context of your own projects and programs, that's always going to be a constant.
100%, always.
Edelman just did a study in the midst of this kind of COVID-19 pandemic about kind of how consumers feel about the roles that brands need to play in order to kind of help get us through this, and that they don't think that the government alone is capable of ushering us through this without the help of corporate America. And obviously we've seen a lot of examples of that, right?
Sure.
But when we start thinking about companies, right, that are not culturally optimized to serve or have the insights to serve the needs of all Americans because of the reasons that you've just mentioned, how can corporate America really truly play a role in helping a country that is as diverse as ours if they don't have the type of, I guess, you know, corporate culture and makeup that's more representative culturally to provide them with the insights to lend the appropriate support to everyone?
Yeah, super difficult challenge. And like I said, you know, this is where, you know, the companies that are diverse, to the extent that they're diverse, are going to have a leg up on companies that are not in order to help tell the stories that need to be told now. I think it starts with authenticity and honesty. You know, if you can be authentic as a company and honest, and sometimes companies have a hard time doing that across the board for all their customer bases. You know what I mean? I think the companies that can be reflective of an honest and authentic conversation with their customers are going to do the best. And it's going to be tough because a lot of companies are not set up to do it, to your point, from a diversity standpoint, to really understand what matters to their whole customer base and be able to speak in an honest and authentic way to those customers.
Do you think with all of these companies, big companies on the edge of uncertainty right now, laying off thousands of employees, potentially filing bankruptcy, do you think we are now at a moment of time where there's enough humility for them to have these conversations and to be able to look inward to figure out what they need to do to kind of re-optimize, to, you know, to take advantage of some of the things that we're talking about so that they're set up for success in the future?
Joe, I would love to say yes. I would love to say yes to that question. You know, if history is any arbiter of what will happen, probably not. I think when people are in survival mode, the last thing they're thinking about is doing the right thing. And I told you this has been couched in doing the right thing for way too long. I don't see it. I don't see it. Look, I'll give you a quick lesson. When school integration happened, there were two school systems in America. There was a black school system and a white school system, right? And those were merged. You know, it wasn't separate but equal anymore. They integrated schools. Guess who lost all their jobs? The black teachers did.
The black teachers, of course. Yeah.
Guess what the number one determinant of success for students, of placement in honors classes, et cetera, was for students? The interest of teachers and the kids. Guess what kids lost all their AP placements? The black kids did, right? And so I fear that this culture of fear, of uncertainty, will make people retrench into their ideas of what a representative workforce looks like and what kind of leadership they need to have right now. I don't think it's going to make people broaden. It should make people broaden and be more introspective and more inclusive. I don't think that it will. I think if history serves us, it won't.
Well, let's hope you're wrong, brother. Let's hope we're both wrong, and let's hope that this crisis has humbled a lot of people to understand that they don't have the answers. They can't do it alone, and we're stronger together. And if we bring our perspectives and collective strength to the table, we can solve any problem that's set before us, man. But look, I'm going to shift over. We are in it together. We are. I'm going to shift over to, you know, getting your perspective on not corporate America anymore, but how individuals can kind of use this as fuel to better improve themselves and to kind of use this as a reset, to kind of find their purpose, find their North Star, and find some optimism from this crisis, right? So you obviously left corporate America 2 years ago. There was a certain level of uncertainty. It wasn't like you had already had a new venture set up. You basically stepped out and was like, it's time. So you stepped out with, you know, obviously into some level of uncertainty. Now your situation was different. You chose to do that. There are a lot of people now who have no choice, right? They don't have a job, blah, 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 blah. How can we get individuals who are pissed off, who have gone through the second recession in a little over a decade, who are super fearful of what tomorrow may or may not bring? How do they get started again? their lives have been decimated. The momentum that they've created coming out of the last recession, they're just getting up to speed. And now they're stepping into this kind of world of uncertainty, trying to find some semblance of normalcy, some semblance of guidance to help figure things out. Is there anything that you've discerned from you stepping out of corporate America that you can share as a principle to help those who are now stepping out into their own world of uncertainty, with respect to the principles they could apply to at least find some, get on some trajectory that gives them some roadmap to success or self-improvement?
Yeah, man, it's funny that we're dealing with so much uncertainty and so much volatility right now. I had a quote I used yesterday. I said, man makes plans and God's laugh, right? Because, we like to think, and I've throughout my career, I've always thought that I was driving. I was in the driver's seat. You know what I'm saying? You like to think you're in the driver's seat. The reality is, I realized, it took me a long time, I wish I had realized earlier, that I'm not in the driver's seat. I'm a passenger. You know what I'm saying? I'm in the passenger. I got the shotgun, Yeah. And in the shotgun seat, doesn't mean you're devoid of responsibility. In the shotgun seat, you can make musical selections. You could affect the navigation. You can make suggestions on what juke joint to stop at, to grab a bite or a beer or listen to a song or whatever, but you're not driving. You know what I'm saying? There are other forces beyond your control. Who could have seen what just happened to us 3 months ago coming? Nobody. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes life is unpredictable, and that volatility and uncertainty is difficult to deal with, I think the important thing, to your point about the North Star, is having a North Star. I think a lot of people are walking around without a North Star. Is figuring out what you stand for. Great brands know who they are, know what they stand for, know who they serve, and know where they're going. Let me repeat that. Great brands know who they are, know who they serve, know what they stand for, and know where they're going. The first thing is to understand your North Star. And a lot of people talk about the North Star as a guide to where you're going. And it's true, it is a guide. But as much as it is a guide to where you're going, it's also a guide to tell you where you're not going. You know what I mean? Because there's a difference between what you can do and what you should do. A lot of opportunities are going to come up, that are things that you could do. But what's really going to be true to your mission and your vision and your authentic vision of who you are as a person, right? Because I think the people that work at space are often happier and more productive and more successful than the people that don't. I've met people, and I'm gonna give you an example. Arturo, come on, you're talking about the half of a tenth of 1%. I met Charles Barkley. He said, "I've never worked a day in my life." I said, "Charles, what do you mean?" I said, "You were one of the hardest working, small forwards in the league. What are you talking about?" He said, No, I did something that I loved for an entire career in the NBA. And when I left that game that I was passionate about and I loved, I got a phone call from TNT, and they asked me if I would be willing to talk about that game and get flown to Atlanta every week, for an untold sum. He mentioned the sum to me for a nice sum of money to continue to do that. Like, that's not never working a day in his life. To him, he just did something that he loved to do. People like, Bobito Garcia, Cool Bob Love, you guys know DJ Cucumber Slice. To me, he's one of the wealthiest people I've ever met, because he wakes up and he's in sync. His passion is in sync with his mission. He has integrity of purpose. You know what I mean? Every day he wakes up doing something that he's passionate about. Listen, I told myself when I left corporate America that I would do two things. Only work on projects that I was very passionate about, things that I'm passionate about doing, and only work with people that I like. Those are the two promises I made to myself when I left corporate America, because those things were really, really, really important to me. And so the power of the North Star to guide where you're going is really, really important. And being your authentic self. How do you bring your true, authentic self to a project? Listen, Joe, I honestly believe that everyone on earth, every single person on earth is here for a specific reason. That you have a set of God-given talents, attributes, proclivities, interests, passions for a reason. That you could be brought up in the same household as 3 or 4 of the siblings, and you all like different things. You all behave differently. You're all passionate about different things. Even though you were raised in the same roof, the same family, I think there's a reason for that. And so finding that thing, finding that passion point, finding that authentic kernel that drives your inner fire to accomplish, to succeed, and to work. That's the trick. I worked with Kobe Bryant. I had the privilege of working with Kobe Bryant. I considered Kobe Bryant a personal friend. Rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. And he said, hey man, if you don't enjoy the path, the work, the grind towards greatness, if you don't enjoy the sessions in the gym, working on the details of being a great basketball player, you will never be a great basketball player. You understand what I'm saying?
You got to fall in love with the pain. You got to fall in love with the pain.
That's the gift. The journey is the gift, man. I told my son this the other day. I said, listen, when people climb Mount Everest, the shortest part of that is the top.
Yeah.
People spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe at the top of Mount Everest. They take the picture, then they head back down. The gift is the journey up Mount Everest. Joe, if I offered you today, if I said, Joe, I will magically teleport you to the top of Everest so you can get that picture for 5 minutes and come right back to NYC, would you do it? It'd be worthless without the journey. It's about getting that pack. It's about doing that work. It's about wearing that suit. It's about tying that line. It's about trudging up that. It's about dealing with altitude sickness. It's about watching other people fail and you succeed. That's what the journey's about. That's the gift.
But that's where the story comes from. It's about the memory, right? If there's not a memory associated with an accomplishment, then it's not an accomplishment.
1,000%.
So what do you say to the average Joe who's like, that's easy enough for you to say, you have the benefit of time, you have the luxury and certain comforts that allow you the ability to kind of focus on the things that you care about. Man, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I'm trying to figure out a way to get out of this trap and focus on the things that I care about, but I can't get out of my own way. How do I get out of my own way? Because I've been put in a situation, whether it be from systematic injustices or the fact that I've just made poor decisions in my life that have now put me in a situation where it's harder for me to break away from the things I feel I need to do versus the things that I want to do. And even if it's gradual, how does someone gradually move down, a pathway towards shedding themselves of some of these obligations and the things they need to do and shift to more of, I'm going to focus and invest my time in what I want to do?
Yeah. I'll give you 3 things. Again, I don't own the truth. I just have my perspective, right? Number 1 is having a North Star. You'd be surprised at how many people throughout my corporate career came in my office and said, hey man, I'd like to get some guidance from you, some mentorship. And I'm like, oh, of course, sure, let's do it. So what do you want to do? Well, I don't know. Yeah, man, that'd be like walking up to somebody in New York City on the street and saying, excuse me, can you help me with directions? Yes, sure, where are you going? I don't know. How am I gonna help you if you don't know where you're going?
Yeah.
You don't know where you wanna go. So developing that North Star, critically important. Number 2, having guides, mentors, be it, see it. We talked about be it, see it before, right? If you really wanna do something, get close to those people that have accomplished that thing and see what it takes to do that thing. You know what I'm saying? What it looks like, what it feels like, what it smells like, what the work is to get that thing done. Number 2, right? That's part of be it, see it. Be around people that inspire you for your journey, and obviously I'd say 2A is you got to believe. You got to believe. Believe in you. No one's going to believe in you. You got to believe. Right? And then the third one I would say is, man, there are so many resources available to us today that weren't available when I was growing up. Because of the digital landscape. Do you know that? I'll give you an example. Duolingo for languages. It's free. It's free and it's free. You can go on Duolingo and learn any language for free. And it's actually fun. The software is fun. Excuse would really learn language not to do it. Coursera. I was on Coursera just the other day. I took a course on Coursera during this downtime. Why? Because I want to improve on my skills. I want to enhance my skills. I want to get better at what I do. So I took a course on Coursera. Check this out. You can take a course on Coursera from just about any institution on the earth, of the top institutions for free. Now, by the way, people will say, no, Arturo, I've been on Coursera. They try to charge you $99 or $59 or $1,000. They try to charge you if you want accreditation and you want credit. If you want to audit the class, you can take anything you want for free at Cornell, at Harvard, at Wharton, at the Berkeley School of Music for free from the best professors on the planet in the subject matter for free. There is no excuse to not have a skill set. So find North Star, find mentors and people that inspire you, who you can talk to, who you can learn from, and then, refine your skill set, sharpen your swords, constantly sharpen your swords, critical. Listen, I am not a special person. When I started in corporate America, I spoke a very basic Spanish, a home parents were Cuban and Venezuelan. So I spoke home Spanish. I sharpened the skill because I wanted to be able to exercise my job, my profession, in my mother tongue. So when I went to Costa Rica, I sharpened my language. I took Spanish classes at one point. When I started working in Brazil, I took Portuguese classes because I wanted to sharpen that tongue. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to use a translator. I wanted to sharpen that tongue. I wanted to relate to the people that I was talking to. I wanted to be immersed in the culture. And so I took it upon myself to sharpen the tools, sharpen the skill set. Everyone has the opportunity to do that today, and most of those opportunities are free.
That's an amazing point, my brother. And I think it's something that is not communicated enough, is the availability, abundance, and the availability of resources that exist at our fingertips, exist within the internet, and our ability to just implement a search result, or a search word. There's so many free resources in there. I mean, we are in this moment of time where we're all taking a pause. Let's use it to our benefit and take this time not to wallow in what we're not doing, and not to wallow in what we don't have access to.
So plot a course forward.
Let's use this time to plot a course forward. There's something that you said that was extremely exciting for me to hear with respect to your analogy of being in the passenger seat. We're so used to, as humans, to have to be in a certain level of control of everything, right? That when we're not in control,
the illusion of control, that
we don't feel useful. We don't feel useful. And I think
let me hit on that real quick, Joe, for a second. So, the illusion of control. When you have that corporate job, you don't know what side of the bed your boss is going to wake up on. You don't know if some people in HR are going to decide that now's the time for downsizing. You have the illusion that you're going to go and maintain that job in corporate America. It's an illusion. We are obsessed with the illusion of control.
It's amazing. It reminds me of a Buddhist proverb that changed my life. Attachment is the root of all suffering, man. We have to detach ourselves from the things we think we've earned, or the things we think we need, or we can't function without, or this fear of letting go to what we've invested in to date. This may be an opportunity for all of us to reset, to rethink, recalibrate on why we exist, how we can contribute, and how we can take more control of our lives in a way that's more meaningful for us. With that, my brother, I will say that's Arturo Nunnez. He's definitely a hero. I'm Joe Anthony. Until next time, remember, you don't have to be superhuman to be a superhero. Get out there and do something positive. Peace.
My brother, thank you so much, bro. You're an inspiration to me. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us, man, and blessing us, man. I definitely want to have you on again. We got a lot to talk about. Before we actually started the show, we were riffing on a lot of hot topics that we definitely need to chop it up.
Let's do it again soon, bro. Anytime, my brother.
Absolutely, man.
All right, be well.